So with our handsome Mr. Z, we were just discussing, I know a little bit about the head collar. So there are also different types of body harnesses out there. I know we've dived into why a Y-shaped harness is my typical favorite. There's several different brands that are available. The reason I would recommend a Y-shaped harness, which means that when it's on the dog's chest, it resembles a Y shape. So if you can, I'll maybe turn him around for a second so you guys can kind of see him a little bit better. So ready? Do a little sit. Nice. So you can see on his chest that it creates this lovely Y shape. So you have the two parts of the Y on the top, and then he's like, would you like a hand? And then you have the lovely bottom of the Y down below. So with your babes, there are certain harnesses out there that I typically don't recommend. And some of those are the type that are restrictive. So I don't love the no-pull harnesses in the sense that they will tighten or restrict the way the dog's body is moving and working. And the reason behind that is that they're trying to prevent the dog from pulling by creating discomfort or an uncomfortable sensation. Harnesses that your babes are wearing should be comfortable and not add any more flustering scenarios or discomfort in the gear to try to stop a pulling behavior. So you'll see that with Mr. Z, he's hooked up to the back of his harness. His lovely shoulder blades can comfortably move and there's no restriction. Even if at times, let's say we were to attach the leash to the front of the harness, I still would not be doing this in the sense to keep my dog from pulling. So what I mean by that is you have a little ring in the front here. This is a non-restrictive harness, so it will not affect his gait. If, for example, the puppy goes to pull ahead, the benefit of sometimes having the front clip is that as the pup goes ahead and they start to feel the leash on the front of them, it helps them turn and pivot. So if you're dealing with a very strong puppy or you're dealing with an adult dog that's never really worked on loose leash walking, remember that you always want to start a lot of this practice in a calm, relaxed, and comfortable environment. So you could even start practicing these types of skills off of your dog's gear and work that every time they're coming near the leg or the side that you'd like them, you feed for that softness and for that position when they're by your side. So if I lose Mr. Z, I might in the beginning use my food, like we've mentioned in the past, as that lure to lure him into the position that I want, and then start to again fade out that hand as your target for later. So for starters, we're using, again, the food to keep that attention on us, but also to create value, and don't worry if you drop one, is to create value in the behavior you're trying to get from your puppy. So if, let's say, for example, you tend to work him on the right versus a left, you could do this with either side. So I tend to like to hold my leash in the opposite side and then have the food be on the same side as the dog, so you can feed and capture those moments when they're by your leg. And two, it can be nice to get them comfortable doing both the left and the right, because you never know if there could be something gross that maybe is on the side of the road, or maybe there's a big distraction that would be too hard for your dog and you want to be between them and the thing. So sometimes having them switch to the opposite side of your body can also be very helpful. So you'll see that my leash is not the thing creating the behavior, which is where if you're struggling and the puppy is needing a lot of management in the form of your equipment, then that means the dog is struggling with the concept of what you're asking, or that the environment is so overwhelming and so very stimulating or scary that their ability to function is out the window. So remember that when you're looking for gear to create behavior, you're more than likely missing the foundation steps prior to making sure your puppy would have been successful as the world got harder. So right now, even with the front clip harness, I'm not using it to yank him around the environment or to pull him away from things per se. So this is where if, let's say he's like, lady, I really want to do my downstays. So let's say, again, we're working with this loose leash walking. The benefit, though, of sometimes clipping it to the front is, let's say he got ahead, he saw something distracting, it could then pivot him back into your space potentially and give you a little bit of more of that help. But remember, if you're looking to gear to create the behavior, then you're gonna always be micromanaging, and your pup may start to think that the only reason he can function is because he's attached. So, ready, Zeusy? So we want to practice also working with our babes off of gear. And at times, sometimes maybe they're wearing their harness. Sometimes they're not wearing the harness. Maybe sometimes they're wearing just their collar. Sometimes they're a naked boy or girl. But we want to make it where being near and working with that loose leash walking and practice sake for knowing where to go physically can be really beneficial to avoid using the gear in the long haul down the road. Yes. So I know we've also mentioned for Mr. Handsome, just like with some of the other babes, is you can also send him away to get him a little distracted. And then from there, start meandering in your home or in your yard and see if all of a sudden he comes back to reorienting to you. And you start to feed for those moments where he comes back into your bubble. So again, we've been doing a little bit with this lovely loose leash walking, even though again, he's not on gear. Nice. Good job. And let's say he's doing a great job. I might again, ready Zeus? Find it. Send him away for another little snack and then see if he can come back from the environment back into my space. Yes, nice job. And you can feed simply for coming into your bubble, or you can start wandering and walking and feed for any time your lovely guy goes back into either the left or the right position. And frankly, I don't really care, because right now I just want him to think that the best stuff happens when we're up and against the side of my body for when we're working this loose leash walking. Yes, nice job. He's doing a very good job. So again, I might send him away for another little find it. And you could always go into Zeus, come. Yes, and work a little bit with those recalls. So you could always start off with a little bit of recall practice after doing another couple other skills. So you kind of keep it fun and kind of enrichment in the sense of changing up the skill set. Yes, because if we just did a whole lesson of only loose leash walking for 5-10 minutes, that for some pups does get a bit stagnant and a little bit boring. And also holding that much focus for so long can be more tiring. Nice job. So you might start to get a puppy that's like, oh, training is so lame. I can't wait for it to be over. And they might start to disconnect from us sooner than later. So this is really pretty where he's working a little bit with these find its. And then I don't always get the chance to say his name and tell him to come back. But you can see that he's getting into the habit of going and sort of moving away starts to equal come check in as well. So I could do my little kissy noise from a little positive interrupter. That was beautiful, Mr. Z. I could go ahead, send him away for another little find it. And then go, Zeus, come. Yes, beautiful. And two, if you're finding that he does more drive-by recall, so like you call him and he comes, but he runs off again, what I sometimes like to do is do several little moments where I feed several snacks for being in my space. So again, it starts to create more value in maybe being here with me, who may be kind of boring compared to the environment. Because remember, you're creating value in these weird skills that your babe probably has very little good association with or value in. And remember how all of these different behaviors and skills and feelings tend to have, for example, like their own little bank account, which I know I've mentioned in the past, but view it as if, let's say, sits happen really readily. It's more than likely sits have had a lot of good deposits into that account. If recalls are not as reliable, it means that a lot of the times there has not been enough practice and deposits into that account to make it seem valuable for him to offer it. Two, if recalls have at times become negative, so you call him from playing, you call him from outside, you call him and leash him up, then he might start to think recalls is the end of fun. So we want to make sure recalls are just fun check-ins with sending them away, maybe a little wrestle and then check in and send them back to playing. But if it always turns into a recall equals we go back in the house, or we're stopping what he may find more exciting, then you might be by accident creating recalls into a negative situation for him, where he'll be a lot less responsive. And right there, he's thinking about going to get water, but he's like, I don't want to miss out on more potential goodies. So he did a little check back in. So ready, find it. So just remember when you're practicing, how are you making it seem from the dog's perspective? And then also, whatever you're working on, does it seem like something you'd be interested in working on too? I'm not saying, for example, people want to do downstays or work certain skills, but the way we might be interacting with the puppy, are we making it seem fun, or are we kind of a boring teacher? So sometimes it can be nice, gauge how well is the learner learning, because a lot of times it falls on the teacher. So if your babe is struggling, yes, there can be very many doggy moments that it's all them and not necessarily you. So adolescence, getting to be a bigger boy and having new hormone changes, also dealing with a developing brain and body. And then a lot of times through adolescence, their ability to cope and function and work through novelty gets a little harder. And then you start to have more of their natural genetics start to poke out too. So if you had a guardian breed, you probably start to see a lot more guardian type behaviors coming out as they hit adolescence. So definitely think to yourselves, am I making the lesson plan attainable for the pup, or am I making it harder and harder as he's saying I'm having a hard time, and then making things unattainable? So remember that whatever we're working on, if he's not doing well, think how could I lower the criteria, change maybe the environment so he's more set up for success, or give him options to do something instead of the behavior you're not loving him mastering. Because remember, puppies don't grow out of behavior, they grow into behavior. So we want to make sure that Mr. Z is still going in the direction we were hoping as he's hitting adolescence and into young adulthood. Zeus. Yes, nice check-in, sir. What a good boy. So, but Mr. Z is doing beautiful. So we'll keep rocking and rolling, doing a few fun things throughout the class. But then we'll give him a little break, and then we'll go and work a few more skills in a moment. But he did a very nice job again being back at school. So good job, Mr. Z, but we'll give you a little break to rest.